You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 90. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Today we're talking about how to release the resistance that comes up after you have gotten awareness around what you're thinking and once you have checked your thoughts against the results that you want. And I have a warning for you, though. This tool that I'm going to share with you to help you get unstuck is the hardest one. Getting awareness and checking your thoughts is so lovely and easy and enjoyable compared to using this tool when you really are feeling stuck. My warning is for you to prepare yourself a little to be ready for a fight with your own brain. Part of you may be very invested in keeping things exactly as they currently are. Or in other words, your brain might be trying to convince you that it is just better to stay stuck. Maybe you're already experiencing this if you have been feeling stuck right now. I recorded an episode all about resistance last year, and in preparation for this week's episode, I decided to re-listen to that one, and I wondered, do I even need to create a new episode about resistance for this week to finish off September's series of how to get unstuck? Or should I just point everyone to last year's resistance episode and call it a day? Well, that episode was a really good episode, and re-listening to it reminded me of some great ideas and techniques. So I do recommend, if you haven't listened to it or listened to it recently, go back and check that one out. I will leave a link to it in the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/release, RELEASE. And even though I really liked that episode so much, there were some things that I definitely wanted to include for you this week, based on the specific topic that we've been talking about this month about how to get unstuck. Some of the really important and helpful parts of that episode from last year were the discussion of 3 different ways that resistance might show up for you. It could be urgent resistance, or you might not even feel the resistance very much, so that could be kind of like a passive resistance, or you might not even realize that you're resisting, or your body might subconsciously resist for you, and that would be avoidant resistance. Also in last year's episode, I introduced the transformation deep dive exercise, which is coming out soon as a workbook that you can use when you notice resistance coming up for you. So check the notebook and journal shop at bexb.org/quickshop to look for that workbook coming soon. But for today, to finish out this Getting Unstuck series that we've been going through together all month, let's talk about 3 more specific ways that you can release resistance when you are feeling stuck. Here's what you can do if you feel like you are in a rut. You are confined. You're trapped. Maybe you're even feeling paralyzed. You want something else that you don't have. And you can see possibly a way to get it, or maybe other people tell you things that you could or should do, but you just don't feel like you can, and you just feel stuck. And that stuckness can feel very heavy, and it's almost like it's self-replicating. The more stuck you feel, the more stuck you stay, and the less you believe that you can get unstuck. And prior to hearing these episodes, you might have even just thought that being stuck is just a state. And when you're in this state, there's nothing to be done until the state is lifted. So when you catch yourself being stuck, you might have previously thought, well, here I am, I'm stuck. There's nothing to be done unless something lucky happens, or unless someone else or something external saves me. And that assumption about what will make you unstuck is not actually true. Because when you notice that you are stuck, you can get unstuck. The first tool that you could use to become unstuck would be to just get awareness around what you're thinking and noticing that you are thinking that you are stuck. Notice what you are thinking that is making you feel stuck. And the second tool that I discussed last week was checking your thoughts against results. And the reason why this is so helpful when you are feeling stuck is because you do have results right now. These might not be exactly the results that you really want. So the benefit of checking your current thoughts against your results is that you can see the connection of how your thoughts are becoming what you create for yourself. And today's tool is releasing the resistance that comes up once you have that new awareness and once you realize the connection between your thoughts and your results. I mentioned some of the resistance at the end of last week's episode. You might be thinking of reasons why things would work for a generic person, but they wouldn't work for you, or why a disinterested third party might think something about your situation, but it doesn't really apply. Or why, yes, of course, you can think one way in one area of your life, but you can't just substitute that thought into a different area of your life. Those were all based on the suggestions that I gave last week, in case you're wondering. So to continue my warning from earlier, releasing resistance is not easy and it is certainly not intuitive. And this is a practice. It will take trial and error. It will take time to learn. My theory is that you will probably need to warm yourself up or get your brain on board, whatever expression you want to use, to indicate that just hearing this one podcast episode is not going to change everything for you. It might, it could. I'm not saying it absolutely won't, but I definitely want to help you release resistance around releasing resistance by sharing that this is an ongoing multi-attempt practice. And hopefully you are now aware that you can label those resistant thoughts as resistance instead of just mindlessly believing the resistance is true and necessary. And now the hard part really starts because resistance is not a piece of cake. Resistance is not a walk in the park. Resistance feels very, very strong and real and very important. And the way that it sounds in my brain is I know for sure this will not work. There is no way this is going to happen. I could never do that. My brain expresses those sentences with so much confidence and certainty. My brain knows for sure what it is telling me. And all of that knowing for sure is a lie. We have to be willing to expend the effort to push through or push past or let go of those resistant thoughts while our brain is assuring us, absolutely not, there is no way. And so this brings me to the first suggestion to release resistance: internal lie detection. This is an important concept to have at the ready and be very familiar with. So pre-talk yourself into being willing to use this tool. If you are prepared to consider the thoughts that you think might not be 100% true, and you are prepared to run an internal lie detection program on your own brain, you can release the quote-unquote grip of truth that those statements have on you. When you catch yourself thinking, there's no way, absolutely not, hopefully you could run that internal lie detection program on those sentences and think, okay, maybe there is a way. Maybe it's not absolutely not. Maybe it's just possibly not. Or maybe it's possibly. Basically, the shorthand version of this is that I think your resistance is a lie. The reason why I think your resistance is a lie is because if it was something that you didn't really want, there would be no tension around this for you. So as an example, I really don't care about organized sports. I'm not a sports fan or a sports player. I understand that people love it and I can see why people love it. I can see that it's a fun and entertaining pastime for other people. It's a great physical activity. It's a great stress release. I see all the benefits. And at the same time, it's just not interesting to me in any way. So I have no resistance whatsoever about sports. If someone offers me the opportunity to participate either as a fan or as a player in organized sports, I have no resistance. If someone said, hey, give indoor soccer a try. It's a really great workout. It's a great team experience. You would have so much fun. I would say, no thanks, not for me. And I would have no internal tension about that decision because there is zero resistance there. It's just not something that I want for myself, and there is no drama about it. That's all very accurate and aligning for me, and that's all very truthful and authentic. Now, on the other hand, something that I do care about is this podcast. And sometimes I find myself thinking some very resistant thoughts about it. Sometimes I think, for example, maybe I want to change it and do something different with the podcast. And then my brain says, oh, that would never work. Oh, people would hate it. If you changed it, it'll ruin everything. And then that's when I do feel that tension that I don't feel when I'm thinking about indoor soccer, because it's something I want to do, but I'm getting conflicting thoughts. And I think something will be good, but then my brain tells me, no, that's bad. So instead of further exploring or even trying this thing that I'm thinking of changing, I just stay doing what I'm doing. I just stay stuck because I'm believing those sentences that my brain is suggesting that this won't work or people won't like it. So see how in this case there is no alignment? See how I want one thing and I'm thinking something else and I am in conflict? Some of my thoughts are inauthentic to the results that I want. And instead, I could just run an internal lie detection on my own thoughts and notice that it is possible that it could work. I am not sure how other people will respond. It is possible for me to have been wrong about something. Have you ever heard of the TV show Lie to Me, based on a true life professor of psychology? The idea of the show and of the work of this professor is that we can train ourselves to recognize deceptive facial expressions in other people. So applying that concept of lie detection to yourself when you think about resistance, does your body have any tells? Do you notice yourself getting clenched or tight with resistance? I notice myself exhaling, like blowing out breath, almost as if I'm holding my breath as I think my resistant thoughts. I am sure that these lie detection tells are different for everyone. So just start paying attention to see if you can call yourself out on your own resistant lies, either with psychological tells or even just noticing the untruthful sentences and push back just a little. So moving on to the second way that you can release resistance is to consider the opposite. This is a gentle, non-confrontational way to push back without calling yourself a liar. When you notice whatever thoughts that you're thinking that are causing you not to move ahead, not to take action, not to progress, not to transform, take note of the thought, because now you have awareness around your thinking. So just for comparison's sake, and just to create a continuum, consider the exact opposite of that statement. For example, if one of the reasons that you are not doing something that you really do want to do is because you believe the thought, I can't afford to, now you know you have that thought because you've created awareness around it, and you notice this result that would cost this investment is something that you want, but the thought that's holding you back and keeping you stuck is, I can't afford it. What is the opposite of I can't afford it? I can afford it. Okay. Or maybe the opposite of I can't afford it is I have plenty of resources. There are so many ways that I can afford this. I don't even have to wonder if I can afford it. It's a no-brainer. This could go in a lot of different directions, obviously. So it's just depending on how you want to create this opposite statement. But just do create an opposite statement from your original resistant thought. And then, If you could imagine both of these statements, these sentences on a number line. So on the left-hand side, you have the statement, I cannot afford it. And all the way over to the right, you have this other statement, I have plenty of resources. Then you can notice how many different versions of the thought there are in between those two opposites. So maybe you don't need to continue believing the thought, I can't afford it. But maybe you're not really yet able to believe the thought, I have so many resources. This is nothing. But maybe you can find something in the middle. So maybe you can find the thought, I can't currently pay for this up front with the amount of money that I currently have in my bank account today, but I know that I can find a way to pay for this eventually. Ooh, so this shifts your thinking and your mindset from, no, absolutely not, I cannot afford it, to, oh, I could pay for it. It would be possible for me to afford this. So just by considering the opposite, you now open yourself up to so many possibilities that before were slammed shut for you because you were only staying on the left-hand side of that continuum. And by widening that continuum, by creating a sentence on the complete other side, or so many sentences in the middle, now you can see there are so many possibilities in between. The third way that I wanted to suggest for you to release resistance is for you to offer it up. I learned this method through all the studying I was doing in the beginning of the year when I was diving deep into the idea of surrender. And I got this specific verbiage to offer it from Tosha Silver's book, It's Not Your Money, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily need to be about money. When you offer up whatever you have resistance about, it means it has nothing to do with you anymore. Once you've offered something up, you're not thinking about your own thoughts. You're not considering what the opposite thought would be to the one that you are currently thinking. Basically, what you're saying is, I allow myself not to be able to control the future. And I allow myself not to be able to control anything outside of myself. I release control over whether or not this will happen. Instead of thinking, I know exactly what will happen, you accept that you have no idea of what will happen, and you acknowledge that anything could happen. And instead of trying to control, you trust that you can get the results that you want without necessarily knowing how or when. Again, these techniques are not easy or intuitive, but if you try this last one, it is the most peaceful if you fully offer up whatever you're thinking about. So let's use our quitting a job example one last time to demonstrate how our fictitious friend could release resistance around quitting a job. First, she got awareness around her thinking and realized the reason she felt stuck and couldn't quit her job was because she was worried about what people would think. The coworkers might be getting more work if she quit, or the boss might hate her if she quit. And then she checked her thoughts against her results, and she realized that she would rather have the result of the new job than the supposed adoration of the boss. But getting unstuck is not easy, so she probably still has resistance, even though she knows what she wants. Maybe she still believes the sentence, my boss will hate me and my coworkers will have more work if I do quit. Let's try today's techniques and see what happens. Internal lie detection. My boss will hate me. Maybe that's a lie. It's pretty obviously an exaggeration, right? We can move right into thinking of an opposite statement. My boss will hate me. My boss will love me. Okay, that might be too weird to think about if she quits. My boss will love me. Maybe not, but it does open up some possibilities. Maybe my boss will be proud of me, or maybe my boss will be happy for me. Those are kind of opposite to my boss will hate me. And maybe my boss will be relieved because she couldn't see a way to promote me or pay me what I'm worth on the current team. Oh, now we see quitting is actually doing a favor for the boss. Or we could get super opposite in the entirely different direction. The original thought, my boss will hate me, could become, I will hate my boss. What? What? Oh, that shows possibly that by staying there at that current job, it could lead to resentment and blame for something that's not even the boss's fault. So interesting, right? And finally, our friend could try offering it up. She could just say, I'm going to quit this job and I am not going to try to control how other people feel when I do. I trust that they will get through my departure the best way for them. Maybe it's learning a lesson. Maybe it's having an experience. Maybe it's getting a new opportunity. I have no idea what the future holds. What do you think? Can you imagine yourself using internal lie detection, thinking of the opposite, or offering up a situation that's creating resistance for you? Do you have any resistance to any of the examples that I've shared today? I've heard some comments and feedback that these topics here in September have been a lot to think about and a lot of information and ideas to digest. So I do want to keep today's episode a little more high level, but hopefully you got what you needed and this has given you something to consider for yourself. And I want to hear all about it. So send me an email at hi@bexb.org or leave me a comment in the show notes at bexb.org/release. I will also link to our previous episodes so that you can see the 3 previous September Get Unstuck episodes and last year's Release Resistance episode. Plus, if you want to hear more about offering, you can check out the Surrender episodes from this year as well. And before we go today, I want to tell you about one of the best-selling notebooks in my notebook and journal shop so far. It is a prompted journal and it's called Feel Your Feels. It's designed to help you process emotions like resistance or fear or anger or even happiness or delight. So each set of pages has a set of questions to help you consider and get in touch with what you are feeling and what you are thinking. So if you know that journaling is beneficial, but you don't want to or can't journal daily or regularly, then this is a great notebook to have on hand to just run through the questions, even just verbally or in your mind, even if you don't write them down when you're feeling something very intensely. Or you could use this journal in a routine every week or however often you decide and answer the questions about whatever emotion you're feeling in that moment. Even if it's a pretty neutral emotion, that would be an interesting way for you to notice emotional patterns and get more in touch with your feelings. So you can get this notebook by going to bexb.org/quick shop, all pushed together, no spaces, QUICKSHOP, and scroll through all the notebooks until you see a bright yellow one with pink writing on it and some stripes in the corner. It is bright and fun and helpful and insightful, and I know you will love it. And it also makes a great gift for someone else too. So I hope you go get that journal. Tell me what you think. And thank you again for listening today and for exploring the topic of getting unstuck with me this month. I will talk with you next week. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.